I never felt the need to challenge you. I wanted to get you on the show first before we turned into who can pass whose
Fair
guard.
enough.
But hey, everybody, we're going to do something a little bit different today. I'm actually going to sit down and talk with Tim from the Fight Dialogue. The Fight Dialogue is a podcast and a YouTube channel. They dive into everything martial arts, but more specifically MMA and Jiu Jitsu. So I'm going to talk to Tim about both sports, what's upcoming, what just happened in the last year, and get his insight onto a lot of different topics. So it should be a fun conversation. So let's get right to it. Tim, man, thanks so much for coming on. We've been struggling to get organized and coordinated, but I'm glad I could finally grab some of your time and get together.
At long last, I love talking about MMA and martial arts and everything else, man. So whenever we can find the time to do it, I'm more than happy.
If people aren't familiar or haven't checked out your channel, can you just give us like a background to how you got into martial arts and sort of the inspiration behind starting Fight Dialogue?
Yeah, definitely. So my background, well, to start from the beginning to why I got into martial arts, I'm actually a big hockey fan myself.
Wait, wait,
New
wait, wait, wait,
York
wait.
Rangers, though. New York Rangers. Okay. So don't even go there with your Philly crap. All right.
And then I guess this is the end of the episode. Thank you, everyone, for listening. I
No,
take
it's
back the nice
actually
things I said.
it's actually a cool story. My grandfather, he's like the Forrest Gump of his day. He'd been everywhere, done everything. Amongst many of the things he did, he was an off-ice official at Madison Square Garden for the NHL. So it was very cool. I went to a lot of hockey games when I was a kid, and the highlight for the hockey games for me was grown men beating the crap out of each other. And I thought, this is great. Like, why don't they have a sport where they just beat the crap out of each other? And then I discovered boxing. And sadly, the boxing matches that I watched were coincidentally the most boring boxing matches in history. So
Yeah.
I did not get into boxing when I first watched it. And it wasn't until years later, it was like 2005, 2006. Spike TV, they were doing the Ultimate Fighter, they were doing UFC Unleashed. I would just watch that every night after school. And that's how I got into MMA and martial arts. And long story short, years later, I decided to join an MMA class where I went for the kickboxing because at the time my favorite fighter was Crow Cop. I was like, yeah, I want to
Oh,
head kick
okay.
people into
Yeah.
oblivion.
Yeah.
And the guy, Vinny, God bless him, shout out to Vinny. I was like, yeah, I just want to do the kickboxing. And Vinny was like, you should do the jujitsu too. I think you'd be good at it. And I was like, I don't need to do that. I've listen, buddy, I watch MMA. I've seen what they do. I think I can figure out.
Yeah.
And he was like, I think you should do jujitsu. He said it just like that, just like as a matter of fact, just I'm gonna sign you up for jujitsu, kid. All right. And I was like, all right, whatever, I'll try it out. And on the first day, I was hooked, man. On the first
Yeah.
day, of course, I got my ass kicked. It was a gi jujitsu class as well, which was for me, it was bizarre at first to be in a gi, but fell in love with it right away. And I've been doing it ever since. And I have dabbled in Muay Thai. I have dabbled in American style kickboxing, but I've never done MMA myself. I know you have a pro MMA career, which is awesome. It's something I always wanted to do, but I've always I've run into some pretty horrific neck injuries before. So
Yeah.
it's not something that I want to get any worse than it already is. So I'll just stick with the jujitsu. And yeah, it got to the point where I was trying to train and I really couldn't as much as I wanted to. Some people might call me a hobbyist for how much I train. I train twice a week. That's
I mean,
like,
it's not a hobbyist is not a dirty word. Like most people train twice a week.
I
Like
get
it's the
it.
weirdo obsessed people who go every single day, twice a day. I
I
mean, it
get
is
it.
what it
But
is.
when martial arts is your passion, to be called a hobbyist is like a stab to the heart. You know what I mean? But I've got kids, I got a full-time job. I can't train as much as I want to. So I was like, how do I get my martial arts fix from home? And my first option was, well, I'll just kidnap some person and just force them to train with me every day. That didn't work out. So now I just make videos about martial arts, and I try to stick to MMA because it kind of encompasses all things, right? Encompasses striking, it encompasses grappling, and I love all martial arts. So yeah, that's what I'm doing now. I'm just trying to crank out these videos for the fight dialogue and talk about martial arts.
Well, your videos, correct me if I'm wrong, but I kind of put them in two camps. One is like, we do technique breakdowns. You take it a step further sometimes where you'll do the how good is sort of series. How
Hmm.
good is Israel Adesanya's grappling? How good is Conor's striking? And then you do the other videos where it's more like a podcast format. Which one do you think is more challenging to do? And which one do you enjoy more? Or is it like picking between your kids? You like them both the same?
Well, I do like them both the same. The podcast is a much easier format. You just kind of shoot the shit about martial arts, and it's the easiest thing in the world. It's the easiest thing in the world to edit as well. There's
Yeah.
no editing involved, no, not much research involved either. The how good is their whatever, whether it's grappling or striking, that is a very difficult video to make. It's a lot of research, it's a lot of editing, but it's definitely a higher reward because people seem to like those videos. And I
If you haven't seen it, I think there was like last time I checked, your Adesanya video had like 250,000 views on it. So that's 250,000 people co-signing on your work. I think that's a pretty good achievement.
it's disgusting. I look at it and I'm like, wow, why are they interested in me? But I do really appreciate it. The reason I started making those videos is to kind of, and I hate using the word casual, but there is a large casual fan base for MMA, and there's nothing wrong with that because not everybody likes to watch fights every freaking day of their life like me. But there are many people that like to watch people beat the crap out of each other every once in a while. So I wanted to kind of bring what I knew about martial arts to the casual fan, I guess. And uh, that's like the unspoken disclaimer of those videos is yes, I do give like technical breakdown and like analysis of these fighters, but it's relatively basic. I don't go into like super detail, like, oh, and this is, he moved his left toe in this direction and that gave him just the amount of weight he needed. It's not like that. I just try to keep it simple and just keep it in terms that people will understand, to give you an idea of how good somebody is. And I started off with how good is their grappling first because, and I'm sure you'll agree with me on this, but the jujitsu skill level in MMA, generally speaking, is pathetically low right now. It is pathetically low. And of course, you have those outliers like, your Damian Mayas and your Ryan Halls and your Gary Tonin that go in there and just tear shit up with their grappling. But there's no middle ground. You're either a wizard in the jujitsu category or you barely know enough to skate by. And that is so evident when you watch these preliminary cards, and even some main event guys just don't know any jujitsu. And the Israel Adesanya, how good is their grappling video, was the first one I made. And I made it because he's a good freaking grappler. You know what I mean? And I wanted to point that out. Like, I know everybody likes him for his striking, but this guy knows what he's doing on the ground, So that's something that I try to quantify. The numbers and stuff, they're whatever. They're just fun and extremely subjective. But
Well, I'm glad you brought up Izzy because if anyone listened to our last episode, we talked about Izzy got his purple belt from Galvo, and I've always used the measure of, so tough guys always say about non-fighters like, oh, he's really good at basketball, but I could beat him up. Well, I know I can't beat up Izzy, but you think he could pass my guard? And I'm gonna go on a campaign now where I'm gonna try to get a match against Izzy in the gi, but I also don't want to talk a lot of shit to him because he could like A, kill me, and B, I don't want to just be an internet troll. So I'm going to reference everyone. Everyone should check your video. So when that match finally happens between me and Izzy and I beat him, people will have a good understanding that Izzy is a really good grappler.
Mm-hmm.
And it took effort for me to beat him. You know, he's a really good dude. And Izzy, you're very handsome and you're a good champion, but I don't think you could pass my guard. But
well, that's the order that you have to watch it. Now you have to watch my video first to discover what a good grappler Izzy is, and then watch your future video of Adesanya trying and failing to pass your guard. And let me just say this: I'm a little bit insulted that I've never been asked to pass your guard before, because I know that's but you basically ask hobos on the street as you're walking down the sidewalk every day, can you pass my guard? You've never asked me before. What's up with it?
I never felt the need to challenge you. I wanted to get you on the show first before we turned into who can pass whose guard. But I always like it's sort of the get out of jail free card. You can use it in your own life, you or the listener. If you think someone is good at jiu-jitsu and you want to say, but he can't pass my guard, you're not actually saying you could beat them, so they can't really get too mad, but you're still asserting a level of dominance over them. So I don't think you could pass my guard, but it's not an insult. It's just, I like my guard. I think my guard's good.
No, I get it, because it's essentially the worst way to brag.
Yeah.
But it's still bragging, so it still feels a little good.
Yeah. It's a really softened version of, I'm slightly better than you in one aspect of this sport that most people in the world don't pay attention to.
Yes.
Like, it's a real softball insult. Like, that's not real bad at all.
I like it.
Talking about, people not knowing jiu-jitsu and casual quote unquote fans. When you look at, and I'm not saying just because of your videos and your content, but just in general, do you think the casual fan of today knows more than even the casual fan of 2 years ago, 3 years ago? Do you think there's more knowledge there in the fan base?
Definitely. Without a doubt, especially about grappling. And that's what's the most encouraging to me, because grappling, no matter what way you slice it, even if you know nothing about grappling, or if you know a lot about grappling matches are more boring than striking matches. It's just a fact. Even if you know exactly what you're watching, it is a less exciting sport, because there's not much visually going on. You know what I'm saying? You can recognize the position and know exactly what's going on, but there's hardly any movement. There's not a lot of movement going on. There's not a lot of energy and action being displaced. Whereas in striking, you're expending more energy by just circling each other than you are, setting up a position in jiu-jitsu. Now, don't get me wrong, in grappling, it's a different type of energy that you're exerting. And of course, having a grappling base like myself, I love watching jiu-jitsu matches. But in generally speaking, grappling is more boring to watch as a spectator sport than striking. So getting back to the point of the question, it's really encouraging to see even the casual fans being knowledgeable of submissions, and a large variety of submissions. Like a guy at work was talking to me the other day. He was like, "Oh, you do jiu-jitsu, I heard." I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "Oh, can you show me how to do a triangle?" I was like, "No," because we're at work. But yeah. I'm impressed that you even know what that is. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I heard it put this way one time, where a casual person can watch a hockey game and they know the goal is this team wants to put this thing where this other team doesn't want them to put it. Like, most sports break down. Football, team A, the Eagles want to put the football in the Cardinals' end zone, and the Cardinals don't want them to do that. With jiu-jitsu, you're in bottom half guard, and if the person doesn't know what's going on, they think that you're getting the shit kicked out of you. But you might be setting stuff up, you might be setting up sweeps, and it's like, it's just a totally different game. But I think you're right. I think that there is more of a knowledge base. I think if you go to a bar to watch a UFC fight, you'll still hear someone yelling out award-winning advice like punch him or kick him, but
Well, no, that's a great
I think
point
it's
that you bring
growing.
up because it's like for a lot of people, they don't even know what the goal of grappling is. Like, okay, and you could tell them like, oh, the goal is to submit them. Okay, what's a submission? Oh, well, a submission is one of 800 of these moves, and
Yep.
it's how you end a fight. So it's kind of hard to put that into a simple picture for people sometimes.
And then let alone if you get into trying to explain how advantages work in
Oh
a
my
tournament,
god.
if they're still with you at that point, you know, you got someone who might move from casual to active viewer. But
Exactly. Yeah.
we not a political show, so we don't have to get into whether or not you think COVID is real or a hoax or how you voted, but how has COVID impacted your ability to put content out? Not even just your own training, not even just getting better as an athlete, but just as someone who puts out content for the world. How have you adapted around it?
Well, the sad truth of it is, it's actually made it easier because I guess I'm training a little bit less and MMA is still happening. You know, MMA was the one
Yeah.
sport that was still going on through the, I guess you could call it the peak of the pandemic. You know what I mean? They were still busting out UFC shows. So I had nothing else to do but to put out content. So in a way, it's kind of been good for my channel. Um, just for the time factor, you know?
Yeah. You have had some pretty big guests recently. Robert Whitaker, I think, was the most recent person you had on. Unless I missed an episode, I saw you were chatting with Robert Whitaker, but you've had John Fitch on, Boogeyman Martinez. Is there anything that sticks out? Just we'll narrow the scope down so you don't have to look back at all time. In the last 6 months of the people you've talked to, is there anything you've taken away from those conversations that was unexpected or changed your view of that person? Anything stands out in the last 6 months?
Yeah, definitely. The conversation with John Fitch was definitely interesting because he was a guy that, had reached the peak echelon of the sport. You know, he fought the one of the goats for the title back in the day, and he's fought in multiple different organizations and is now retired. So he's on the outside looking in. It was a very interesting conversation with him. And his demeanor was not exactly what I expected either. He
Yeah.
kind of yeah, he kind of seemed like, I don't want to say bitter, but he seemed like he had a chip on his shoulder in some aspects, especially against the UFC. And I know that they had that lawsuit going on with Nate Corey and Kung
Yeah.
Lee and all them. I don't know how involved he is in that, but very interesting. And to get that insight into different organizations like Bellator and the WSOF and the UFC, very, very interesting.
Is there anyone lined up? Are you at liberty to
Oh yeah,
say
definitely. We're gonna
what
be
you
dropping one with Cyril Gahn pretty soon. Cyril Gahn
Oh,
and
really?
Andrei Fiziev. He just knocked out Moicano. He's a great fighter from Kyrgyzstan. So I can't wait to get those up there. Yeah, Aldrich is the other guy that I do the podcast with. Man, he puts himself out there. As soon as anybody wins in the MMA world, it's like boom, instant DM to their Instagram. And he's just like, "Hey, want to do an interview?" I'm like, "You got more balls than me, but you've also gotten us a bunch of interviews." So
We do that too, man. I do it. We That's how we got Mason Fowler. That's how we got Lachlan Giles, was just sent them messages. And I mean, in my own experience, people in this community are
yeah,
nice people. People, especially if they have something to promote, something coming up they want to get out there. But if you message people and they have a chance to come on and talk about fighting or jiu-jitsu, people want to do it. But you in Kyrgyzstan, didn't you put out a video not that long
I
ago about
did.
people
I
from
did.
Kyrgyzstan?
Uh,
Yeah.
I have no affiliation with the country at all. But that's the thing about martial arts, man, is especially in MMA, fighting is something that translates to every single culture on the planet. Every single culture has some type of fighting or some type of martial arts or warlike culture. You know what I mean? And when you watch MMA, you see these people from different cultures, and it gets you interested in their culture. You know what I mean? Like I didn't
Yeah.
know Kyrgyzstan was even a place before Valentina Shevchenko, you know what I mean? And then you start to
Yeah.
learn, oh, there's other fighters from Kyrgyzstan as well. Oh, they're all murderers? Awesome. That's great.
Yeah.
And you know,
Yeah.
that's another thing that I try to highlight on my channel is like there's amazing fighters from like these little places in the world that you've never heard of. And it's just like a thriving martial arts culture there. So it's definitely something that I try to highlight on my channel. Yeah.
And then Cyril Gahn, I uh I have mixed feelings about him because I'm such a Junior Dos Santos fanboy,
Mm,
and he finished him pretty
yeah,
savagely with that
dude.
elbow.
Did you think it was
Uh
to the back of the head?
I thought watching it live, I this was great refereeing. This was a great bit of refereeing. Watching it live, I was like, "Bro, back of the head, come on." And then watching the replay, they tell you every time I've ever been in a fighter meeting with the ref, they say if you can make contact with the ear, it's a legal
Hmm.
strike. And I thought the contact was made with the ear close enough to the elbow. Like if you're making contact with the ear way down your arm and you're
Yeah.
still wrapping around hitting the back of the head, that's one thing. I thought it was by the rules close enough to legal that it was a good
Yeah.
stoppage. What did you think when
I
you watched
totally
it?
agree. And I honestly I've seen worse. The one that comes to my mind, and I don't know why this is the one that always does come to my mind because there's actually been even worse ones than this, but Vitor Belfort versus Sexy Yama when they fought. Um,
Yeah.
Granted, he dropped what's his name? Akiyama. I all I can think of
Yeah.
is Sexy Yama. I can't think of what his
Well,
actual name is.
there's there's Okami and there's Akiyama, and I think there's a combination of those two as well. So I think we should just stick with
Yes, I
Sexyama for
mean you
simplicity.
can't have a better nickname, honestly. So, yeah, he
Yeah, right?
dropped Sexy Yama, and he face planted right, but then there was another shot after that, and it wasn't to the side, it wasn't to the neck, it wasn't to the face, it was to the back of the head, and I was like, no. If he had a chance of getting up from that first punch, there's no chance he's getting up now.
Yeah, yeah. I think that it's one of those things. It's so hard going back to the Cyril Chigano one. It's so hard live, man. Like that's a good bit of refereeing to recognize that that was a legal shot. And I'm sure I don't know if they had the replay because every state is different with these damn rules now. They probably could have gone to the
Mhm.
replay, but I think it was legit. I wish Junior Dos Santos wouldn't fight
Yeah.
anymore. I really like that guy. He's on 4 losses in a row, 4
But you know what's
knockouts.
frustrating about his losses? Like that you could call them devastating losses because of the finishes, but leading up to the finish, he does okay. Like he does all right against these high level
Yeah,
guys, and he beat Derek Lewis.
yeah,
Even in his loss to Stipe, he landed some nasty leg kicks where even Stipe was like, "Dude, I had to take him out quick because I couldn't stand on my leg anymore." So
yeah,
it's
yeah,
frustrating because he's still high level, but his chin isn't anymore, you know?
yeah, yeah. And he was a guy who he was just a boxing specialist. You know what I mean? That was his whole game. And how many fights did we watch him not throw a single kick? Or he would do that like light inside leg
Yeah, the
kick,
Dan
that like lead
Henderson.
leg inside
Yeah.
leg kick. Yeah, but he's a guy who was very successful. I really like him. I want to be friends with him. And for that reason I don't want him
Yeah.
to fight anymore. But I'm sure Cyril Gahn will be a good conversation because some of his strategy in that fight and the way he controlled the space and his footwork. Make sure you ask him about how they game planned to was it a purposeful game plan to go in and out as much as he did, or did he just get that read
Yeah.
on the night? And then you let me know when I watch the fight. When I watch your video, make sure you say, "Hey, Justin, this question was for you."
Well, unfortunately, we already recorded the episode. It's in the editing phase right now, so I'll have to save that one for the next time.
That's the reason not to do that, I guess. That's the reason we won't hear it, that it's already been edited. But Tim, before I let you go, I'm going to put you on the spot
Mhm.
with 2 questions. All right. Number 1, best fight of the year 2020.
Best fight of the year 2020. Well, the Davidson Figueiredo one was amazing. That was the most recent one, but the reason I'm not picking that one is because even though the fourth round was incredible, the action really died down in the fifth round. So for that reason, you can't, in my mind, I can't say that was the best fight of the year because it wasn't nonstop action. Whereas Wiley Zhang versus Joanna, that was nonstop action. It was just rock'em sock'em robots for 25 minutes straight, and those girls beat the shit out of each other. But I'm not picking that one either because it was somewhat one dimensional. It was basically a
Okay.
kickboxing match. Okay. And you could say it was the
Yeah.
best
Okay.
kickboxing match of 2020, but your question was the best MMA fight of 2020. So for that, I have to pick Poirier versus Hooker because not only was it nonstop action through all 5 rounds, but it was such a good blend of different techniques of takedowns, elbows, knees, kicks, punches, submission attempts. There was a lot of guillotine attempts in that, clinch work. It's a beautiful, well-rounded fight. So that's my pick.
That fight I also put in my top 3 of the year. Um Another honorable mention, I think, also with Dan Hooker would be against Paul Felder. I think was
It's excellent.
another great fight. Again, on the one-dimensional-ish side, not a ton of grappling going on, but I think Dan Hooker had quite a year despite
Right.
mixed
One of the
results.
few
But
guys that will significantly raise his stock even in a loss. So yeah.
yeah, yeah. If he's gonna fight in 2 top 5 fights of the year, if you lose and you're fighting the best people in the
Hmm.
world and it's exciting, your stock's gonna go up. But I told you I was going to ask you a second on the spot question. Now, you have a small sample size here because there's not that many announced, but what are you looking forward to most in the next year? In 2021, what fight either announced or needs to be announced are you looking forward to the
Well,
most?
I mean, on my channel, I stick to the UFC a lot, but I have been following ONE FC for the past 2 years now. And maybe it's a bias thing because I'm a jujitsu guy, but dude, I'm so stoked for Gary Tonin right now. He's right at that title shot. And
Yeah.
he's a guy that I just really want to see get some type of significant belt. You know what I mean? And Ton Lee just
Yeah.
knocked out Martin Nguyen, which was an incredible fight. Incredible fight. Nguyen is such a killer, and Ton Lee was like the dark horse. Like I think he was like a runner up on the Ultimate Fighter, and then ended up going to ONE FC and just
Yeah.
killing everybody. So I really want to see that Ton Lee versus Gary Tonin fight. I think that'll be an interesting clash of styles, and I'm excited for that one. Yeah.
I I am excited for Gary Tonin as well. I do think another fight that needs to be made in the UFC. Now we have Conor McGregor fighting Dustin Poirier, and people who've listened to our show are probably tired of hearing me talk about it. But after that Charles Oliveira fight against Tony Ferguson, I need to see Oliveira fight Justin Gaethje. I need that in 2021, and then the winner of that should fight the winner of Poirier McGregor for Khabib's not coming back. That fight for the lightweight belt.
Hmm.
That's my prediction. I thought for sure off after that Charles Oliveira fight versus Tony Ferguson, that was going to be on your please make list.
I do want to see Oliveira fight, but I do not want to see him fight Gaethje, man. And I'll tell you why. That fight is so predictable. It's not even funny. That is a horrendously bad matchup for Justin Gaethje. It's horrendously bad.
Who else is Gaethje going to fight at this point that's not like one of those 3 people? And the other 2 are already booked. I think that he doesn't really have any other options. I mean, he's not going to fight someone ranked
is
below them, you know?
is Chandler booked?
I know Chandler was like the short notice late replacement potential. I don't know that he has something booked. You know what? You might be right. You might be right. Chandler might be free.
I would love to see Justin Gaethje fight Michael Chandler, and I want to see Oliveira fight the winner of McGregor Poirier. Honestly,
Okay. At this point, I always say on our show, if you ask me any day, I can give you any random order. It could change. If you mix up Chandler, Oliveira, Ferguson, Poirier, and McGregor, and you randomly draw names, I'll watch any combination of those people fight. Who do you think,
yeah,
since
yeah,
we
definitely.
have you, I already put you on the spot twice, I might as well one more time. Who do you think wins McGregor Poirier and why?
I got McGregor for that one as well. Poirier has grown a lot since their last fight, and McGregor has grown in some ways too. But I think no matter what way you slice it, it's not a good matchup for Poirier because of his style. He's a lot better defensively, but against McGregor, you need a guy that can move their feet and get the hell out of the way of that left hand.
Yeah.
Poirier he will not get out of the way of it. He will stand there to be hit. You know what I'm saying? He is there to be hit. And in the first 2 rounds against McGregor, if you are there to be hit, you are also there to be knocked
Yeah.
down. And that's what's going to happen, I think.
Yeah.
That's what's going to happen again.
I have a video planned for that week of the fight where I'm going to put out just basically a technique breakdown, but of that first fight and how McGregor won. So I don't want to give too much away right now because you kind of already did. But yeah, I think it's going to be more of the
I'm
same as the first
sorry.
fight.
No.
Everyone still watch. Everyone still watch.
Yes.
I think it's
still watch
I
it.
think it's going to be more of the same. I think it's going to be. It's not that Dustin Poirier gets hit a lot, but McGregor doesn't miss often, and I think
Yeah.
I think it'll be another win for McGregor, and then next time you come on the show, we'll talk about, after all these matchups have been announced, what happens next. But because I could talk to you for another half hour about who McGregor fights after he wins and where does he mix
Oh,
in with
definitely.
Oliveira, but it's going to be a good
Definitely.
2021, I think.
I think you're absolutely right. And I think things get better in the world.
Yeah.
I'm being optimistic about that, with all the drama going around in the entire globe. I think things are going to be looking up because oh man, it kind of sucked. I missed going to MMA shows. I
Yeah.
missed going to them live,
Yeah. Well, Mike and I, we started doing the show and we had this list of, these are the schools we want to go visit. You know what I mean? We want to go take the show on the road, go to a school and train and record an episode at a school. And your house is now on the list. And I want to get on this road trip, but I agree things will be better. And fights are going to keep happening, and there's good stuff out there. We didn't even touch on the eventual Aljamain Sterling Peter Yan fight. We didn't touch on Adesanya moving up to fight against Yan. Like, there's so many things out there that are going to be good fights. It'll get better. It'll get better.
And we didn't even touch on the jujitsu side of things where, who's number one is putting on some amazing
Seriously, dude.
cards, man. So
Yeah.
Yeah. We got a lot more to talk about. This is definitely won't be the first collaboration video we do.
Yeah. We got a long list of things. And if it wasn't already so late and this episode couldn't be 2 hours long, we could keep going. But Tim, I appreciate you coming on so much, man. Like I said, you've been supporting our channel from the very beginning, and we appreciate that. Just let everyone know where they can find you and what you have next and anything you want to tell everybody.
Yeah, guys, just look for the Fight Dialogue on YouTube. We're at Fight Dialogue on Instagram. We need more Instagram people. You need to help me out with my Instagram because you're like an Instagram dude. You got all the followers on Instagram. I'm jealous. But yeah, just the Fight Dialogue or TFD. Look us up and you can see all our breakdown videos and our podcast on the channel there.
And if you're following me on Instagram or you're following That Jiu Jitsu Podcast on Instagram, you should be following Fight Dialogue, because if you like our content, you're going to like their content and vice versa. Thanks so much to Tim for coming on. Make sure you check out his YouTube page, The Fight Dialogue. He has so many good videos there, a lot of good technique breakdowns. And if you like our stuff, you're going to like his stuff as well. Make sure you head over to Instagram and follow him as well at The Fight Dialogue. If you want to follow our show on Instagram, it's at @that_jiu-jitsu_podcast. If you want to follow me directly, it's at Justin Lesko. And if you want to follow Mike directly, it's at M_Callahan_106. If you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up. Make sure you're subscribed. I have a lot of content coming out this week, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. Thanks so much, everyone. We'll see you next time.